you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away, as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everybody's keeping well in the world right now.
Hello, everyone. Stuart Hall here. In 4 years, we're actually talking about something that vaguely resembles the name of this podcast, so this is a good thing. Hello.
That's very true. This is the first ever WrestleCast. And is this also the first time we've had two guests on, Stu?
Probably.
It might be.
Yeah, I mean, Dave's been on a few times, but that was with Matt, so yeah, he probably is.
Yeah. So the two guests we've got, they are returning members. We've got Mr. Ashley Dolan. Good evening, Ash.
Why do you keep saying Ashley?
I know it annoys you. It's awful. And this is the first time, Jafo, you've joined us and it hasn't been games related, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is the first non-video game conversation that we've had, and it's still nerdy, I guess, but it's a step away from video games.
Yeah, very good point.
Game adjacent.
It sort of is, isn't it? Like, I don't know about you, Stu, but back in the day, I used to love a wrestling game, even back on the SNES. Did you ever go with the Royal Rumble and all those games way back when?
The first ones I played were on N64. So I never played any of the early ones. Like, I know when we had all them, the ones that came out a couple of years ago, like the backyard ones and the reimaginings. I thought, yeah, these look pretty cool, but I never had the nostalgia for it because I never played them ones. And I know we had them times when we were in the Royal London in town and they had the old PS1 and PS2 set up, didn't they?
Yeah.
The SmackDown on.
They did. Control, which didn't help, but never mind.
I mean,
imagine you would have been a wrestling gamer.
A little bit, yeah. So like you're talking like Raw versus SmackDown. One of the most memorable things that I remember was I don't remember exactly what game it was on, but you could recreate Mankind versus Undertaker, and you could throw Mankind like through the top of the cell. I remember that being on one of the video games, and quite clearly that's like a very vivid memory from early video games as well.
Outstanding. Ash, what was your first wrestling game?
Mine would have been the first SmackDown, I think, on the first PlayStation. That was like the first one, which we had barely any characters, and then SmackDown 2, you could play as S.A. Rios and Lita, and that blew my mind that you could be S.A. Rios, and I was like, oh, we're in the good times now.
Definitely one for the boys' stable. because Stu, you're the filthiest of casuals. I mean, actually, before we get into that, I'm handing this over to you to lead the show here. But just tell us a bit about your history with wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it like everyone else did as a kid. Well, as a child anyway. Even though we had Sky, and I had the old VHS Video Plus system, so I could have set it to record and everything like that. But it was just one of the things because my dad was like fluently like 1970s bloke that he is. It's fake. Why are you watching this shit? Watching boxing instead. So it was never a thing really until probably secondary school. Are you talking? Yeah, probably late secondary school when it is Attitude Era basically. That was what was on, and because it was talked about on Soccer AM and all that kind of thing. So the cross promotion got me into it, and that's what when you had less responsibility and more time as well, which is my main problem with it anyway, because there's only so much time. I can't have another thing that requires up to 8 hours a week added onto the already packed schedule of silliness.
That's a good point. It does take over your life a little bit. It's fun, but I think you've got to be a bit obsessive to get into it. Anyway, Stu, there's questions you've got to ask us. So on to you, sir.
So there's five sections of this masterpiece. General wrestling interest first. So, what first got you into wrestling, or what made you stick with it? More importantly, especially your case, Andy, because you are against the corporation. You're against the WWE monopoly of things. But go on then. What first got you into it, and then why are you still around?
I don't think I'm the only one on the panel, really, who's probably WWE bottom of the list. I got into wrestling because of my nan. I remember watching World of Sport on ITV on her little black and white TV. Back in the 80s. Like I go back to Big Daddy, Mick McManus, all of the old school, proper, before it was shit canned, when it was just, fat guys rolling around before the Americans came in and, it was all shiny, oiled up morons. So that was when I got into it, was, from a very early age. So I've probably been watching wrestling, I'm nearly 42, and I've probably been watching it for over 35 years of my life at this point. Once that sort of died down and then the Americans came in, the first thing I ever saw was Earthquake decimating Hulk Hogan. Like, I thought he killed him. I kind of wish he did, because I loved Earthquake. I've always liked the bad guys in wrestling, and he was just this. Well, he was a former sumo wrestler in his previous life. Like, he was the legitimate tough guy, and he beat the big guy, the one that everyone seemed to love in the crowd. And I kind of liked that it made people cry. It was fun. And I think I've always stuck with it then. I've had a couple of breaks since, much like yourself. Like, I went through a period of time when Doink, and there was a Garbage Man, and there was somebody who used to play guitar who'd come to them. Like, when wrestling was about nonsense, I sort of drifted away and then came back to the Attitude Era, much like yourself, Stu. And then probably had another break from about 2004 to 2014. So I've had a couple of breaks, because I think you need to every now and again.
Yeah, like you said, he does seem to be intense. I mean, Ash seems like the kind of person who was born with a belt around his waist.
Oh, go on. It weren't that early, no. I would have been 8 or 9, I think. I started in 99. That shows my age. I'm 35 now. But like, when you channel hopping and stuff like that, and then you see, for me, it's you see three proper goth lads coming out from out of nowhere to a ring of fire, and you're just like, what is this nonsense? And then they're coming out, and they're goths and they're vampires, and then they're doing bloodbath to people, and you're just like, what is this madness? And then the first WrestleMania I ever watched was 15, where Undertaker hung Big Boss Man after their match, their Hell in a Cell match. Edge, Christian, Gangrel came in and they hung him, and I was just like, they just hung a man on live television. What are we doing? And then I was just fixed from there. up until probably about the same time as Andy, maybe a year or so before. And then after about 07, 09, yeah, about then. And I've just never looked back, and it's just got worse.
Got worse. I mean, talking about well-hung men, Jeffo. What was your best?
So initially, I'm similar to Andy in the fact that I got into it for a period of time. So mine would have been like middle of the 90s, just before sort of the Attitude Era really kicked off, and then the whole Attitude Era as a whole. And then I fell out of it sort of when John Cena started coming around and ruthless aggression was a thing. And then I got back into it mainly because of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Prince Devitt and everything that they were doing over there with the Bullet Club, and how against the grain that was for Japanese wrestling. And it kind of like developed this new love that I have for wrestling, and I've stuck with it ever since. And that obviously got me into liking other things, and then eventually into, the AEW that we've got today.
Excellent. Andy, you look like you're primed to say something then.
I was going to say, have you watched any AEW yet, Stu?
Yeah. Because when all that the Tony Khan stuff was going on, when he was interested in buying Wembley and all that kind of madness, and you would say, "Oh, you need to watch this," and I gave it a go, and I think, it seems less polished, which I guess is the appeal of it all.
The sickos,
Actually, yeah, for the bloodthirsty. But yeah, I did give it a go, and I do get the appeal of it. Something that's not you're not supposed to like this. It's the alternative. So what do you love most about professional wrestling, Andrew?
I think I love about wrestling. It's the same thing I love about the theatre and films and stuff. Like, it's art, basically, albeit it's a physical art. The reason I think it's an art more so than a sport is because we know that the outcome is predetermined. So everything they do in the ring really is just to tell a story. And ultimately, it comes down to like the oldest story in the world as well. Like, it's good versus evil. Pretty much, it's like the most basic story that you can get. But it can be done in such a way, in such a variety of different ways. Like, I think to go to AEW, like, I think if you watched the latest episode of Dynamite, there were so many different styles of wrestling on that one show that no matter what you like, you could probably find something in there to enjoy. Like, if you don't like high flying matches, that's fine. They've got ground and pound squash matches. There's a bit of everything, and I like the variety of wrestling. It's something for everyone, and it can be high art in parts, and it can be the basest, lowest toilet human nonsense you've ever seen. And I kind of like that. Like, there's just a bit of something for everybody.
Is that the same for you, Ash?
in a sense, yeah. But for me, I love going to it, and I'm showing how much of a nerd of like the WrestleManias that I've been to, and it's this sort of the same feeling of going to an away game, that camaraderie you have with people. Like, it was WrestleMania, so it was WWE, so it was the filthy casuals in a sense. But like, I go back to WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. They took over the city. There were 60 odd thousand people there in one city, all for one purpose. And you could go anywhere, and it doesn't matter who you like. It doesn't matter what kind of wrestling you're into. You're there for the wrestling. And it's just that feeling of being part of something. Like, you could be just walking down Bourbon Street with a fucking drink in your hand, and somebody will come up to you because you've got a wrestling shirt on, and you'll have a 10-minute conversation with any fucking random person. And it's just that feeling of being part of it. And I love that feeling. Like, I've just come back from New York / Philadelphia for Dynasty, and just had people coming up to you. Like, we were on the train, and I was wearing my Will Ospreay shirt, and literally like, "Oh, you're a Will Ospreay fan?" Then they hear me speak, and they're like, "Oh, you're from England." And then it goes into a whole thing of, "You've come all this way for this." And I'm like, well, yeah, but no, I'm on holiday, but it was only a 2-hour bus ride away. And it's just, it's that feeling that you can just get on with people as a proverbial loner. It's just, you're in a safe space there. And I love that feeling.
How many have you done then altogether?
I've done 7 WrestleManias, 2 Royal Rumbles, 4 SummerSlams, 2 All-Ins, but that's London, and then this Dynasty this year. So quite a few.
And they say there's no money up north. Well, yeah, I think you're going to hint at it, Andy, there about the in high art and everything. So, go then. Everything on the table. Get rid of the misconceptions people have about wrestling and what you want to clear it up for. Because I've had this before, like the times when I've dipped in and out and stuff, and I was when Ethan was small, and I got back into it for 18 months, and I watched everything. And I was watching it on coaches on away games, and people were like the usual piss take and stuff, but they were still the ones up, especially the other side of the aisle on the couch. They were watching it. They couldn't hear it because I had my headphones in, but they were still watching it. They were fascinated by it. But you do get, this is fake, don't you? So is that the main thing you got to say?
It is. Because in no other form of entertainment does somebody question the validity of the of what you're watching. Like, you don't watch Breaking Bad and people are like, oh, it's fake. He's not really selling fucking meth. Like, of course not. And it is that it's that people look down on it because it's fake, in spite of the fact that pretty much every type of media you consume is fake. Like, Big Brother isn't real life. That is fake, manufactured nonsense. So is wrestling. Like, wrestling is as real as anything else that you put on TV. The only difference is like people do legitimately get injured. Like, it's fake to an extent. It's fake that because it's not a real winner and a real loser, but everything they do is real. Like, Mick Foley gave his ear for professional wrestling. It does have, genuine real life repercussions.
Yeah, I'll get there. I mean, is it? Go on, Ash.
You don't see Marvel fans getting griefs because you don't see superheroes flying around, do you? You don't see the Marvel fans getting that kind of grief, but yet we get it because, it's fake. No, it's not. It's not. It's just predetermined. It's just, it's an art form that's just been, it's like gymnastics with general televised fucking determined result. That's all it is. It's a soap opera, but probably more catered towards a certain demographic.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel you crossing the Atlantic all the time and seems to be forever? Is it? Are there is this question come up over there all the time? It seems a very English thing. This whole it's fake.
Yeah, I think it's more of a European condition than it is an American one. I think Americans kind of just accept the fact that it's predetermined, and that's kind of like the nature of the beast. And it's just enjoy the fact that people give their blood, sweat, and tears to actually perform and to go out there every night and give everything for the fans. Whereas it seems to be more of a European condition where they go, oh, well, it's fake. Why do you watch it? Why have you got this issue with it? Because at the end of the day, I don't know whether we think as Europeans, I think we think more of ourselves as sort of a highbrow and saying we question it, whereas Americans are seen as stupid. But is there more enjoyment in being what most people would say is stupid, and you can actually enjoy the art form that brings joy to your life? I don't know. That's a more philosophical question, I guess.
I mean, that question can be answered right now because whatever Andy went to see this afternoon, I'm never gonna get any enjoyment for wherever that film was, and yet I watched something that we'll talk about later on in this podcast that was one of the best / worst hour and 40 minutes in my entire life. You don't turn your brain off, enjoy yourself. I think that's the main thing about it. And what was it, Andy? What was this thing that you watched?
I don't know what you're on about, Stu. What have I watched today?
You put something on saying Seated. I presume you were watching.
Oh, the Julia Ducournau film that's been announced. It's not out yet. It's going to be for the Palme d'Or, I believe, at the next Cannes. Julia Ducournau, the one who did Titan.
There we go.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but like literally just her name being there, I will be seated. To Defoe's point, I think one thing that differentiates us in Europe to the Americans is the Americans understand that Monday Night Raw, Wednesday Night Dynamite, they're not wrestling shows. They are shows about a wrestling company. Whereas in Europe, we look at wrestling as being, about wrestling. And it's not. Like, it's that mindset of it's a show about a show. It's that one step taken away from it. And because obviously we've got, like, boxing's huge in the States as well, but I think historically it's been more in the UK than anywhere else. I think that we sort of expect sport to be legitimate, and anything that's not is not sport.
Yeah, there's probably something in that, especially with the match fixing scandals in Italy and stuff like that happened in the 90s, and in France as well with Marseille, and the sheer uproar that all that stuff got, and rightly so. Yeah, there probably is something in there. It probably is a cultural thing, but it is like, for me, like you say, it's soap opera for bearded men. Who'd
As three of us sit here and be feared to the ones who watch it.
This is the perfect example of why this podcast should be visual sometimes, because when this goes out and it says WrestleCast, one looks like a lion, one's in the middle, and one's bald. There you are. Perfect.
I think Americans, even with their sports, they're a lot more performative. So I've just come back and I went to 2 ice hockey matches and 1 baseball match, and like every single time there's a break in play, there's something different going on. Like they played. I sent a video to Andy in the 6th innings at the baseball. They had all the fucking people playing the YMCA and they're dancing to the YMCA. It was fucking madness. And then at the end of the 7th inning, there was a fucking rave going on. It was superb. You don't see that you don't see that when a throw-in goes in at Molineux.
Like at the Molineux at half time, if they bring a musician out, they get booed. That's the difference that we're talking about here, isn't it?
You know how much it was? It £1,600 that kicked the ball through the bit of plastic on a goal net game from last season.
Yeah.
And think, this is 5 minutes, and you can't. You either choose to have a piss or a pint anyway. So in the small amount of time that you're back in your seat, that's all your time for anyway. So it is a very different mindset. I get that, and I think that kind of goes into the matches and moments section. Because I, being the filthy casual, as you said, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, all that kind of stuff. If possible, I will stay up and watch them because it is funny, and it is entertaining, and it's the kind of thing that you fall asleep to, really. Especially, watching the fucking Jets that's a different story altogether. But you get conditioned to stay up and watching certain things, and watching wrestling in the middle of the night is a fun experience. And I ain't done the pub thing, and I kind of, on the one hand, I want to do it. On the other, I kind of dread it, and it could be like a CX. But it's just
the worst thing about wrestling events in fans, like you just don't want to be near them.
But being near them is part of the fun. So what is your all-time favourite match and why? And put it in with the second question as well. What match do you think best showcases the artistry of wrestling to someone who's skeptical still? Go on, Andrew.
Like, for years, my favourite match was always Mick Foley Triple H from the 2000 Royal Rumble. Like, it was violent and it was kind of nasty. And I think it was the first time I really remember Thumbtacks being involved in a wrestling match. It must have been done in like ECW and everything, but it was the first time it was done on a Fed TV. So that one for years. But like anything which probably involved Jericho, Benoit, or Angle, like 2 out of 3 put them in a match, brilliant. You had the ultimate submission match between Benoit and Angle, the ladder match between Jericho and Benoit. You had the triple threat between them for the Eurocontinental title. Like, they just knew how to put on the perfect stuff. But wrestling has moved on so much in the last 6 years. Like Jafo said with New Japan, I think New Japan was the catalyst for wrestling moving on to where we are now. Like, it's kind of changed the game a bit, because in between stopping watching WWE, or F as it was, and then coming back and watching it in 2014, what they were producing was pretty much the same shit. It hadn't really changed. But when you turn on New Japan TV, it was just a complete different world. Like, that looked almost real. It was so different. So I think when I look at like my favorites from probably the last couple of years, it's an American match, but I think it is one that is very heavily Japanese influenced, because it is Hangman Adam Page, Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks. I loved that match. It had everything that you want in a wrestling match. It was hard hitting. It had the high moments of drama. There was so much story going into it, and then the fallout of it as well. It was steeped in the lore of the Elite, as they were known. So that was just basically a group within the Bullet Club, which I think everyone has probably seen a Bullet Club t-shirt at least. So like, if you're a wrestling fan, that had everything. And if you're a casual, you could just enjoy it on a base level of it being an exciting match. For the match that I think showcases the best of wrestling, though, this is probably going to get a few mentions, but all in 2024. MJF versus Will Ospreay. Now, I know the one that you thinking I was going to say, Ash, but I'm not. The reason I'm picking MJF and Will Ospreay is that shows you all sorts of shit. Will Ospreay is probably one of the best high flyers who's ever lived, if not the best, and currently probably the best in the world. He's a really sympathetic babyface babyface is, for the casuals, babyface is a term for a good guy in wrestling, and a heel is a bad guy. Will Ospreay is the perfect babyface fighting in his home country for a title against the big American bellend MJF, the perfect heel. He's big, he's brash, he's a prick, he's everything you sort of hate, especially when he's the foreign invader in your home country. If you want to see wrestling, if you don't know a lot about wrestling, I would show somebody that match, because it shows you everything that you want. It's got the highs, the lows, the good, the bad. It kind of works for everything for me.
Excellent. Go on, Ash. Since you were almost stolen, you thunder stolen then by him. Go the other way around if you want. Get your best match out of the way first. I presume it's the same guy.
No. I was worried he was going to say his favorite match was going to be the same as mine, because it's from the same event. It'd been different for a lot of years, but last year was my favorite match I've ever seen, and it was Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland. There's not many times that it's reduced me to pretty much tears, but that match that night really did. Was it 60,000 that night? 56, something in that degree. The stakes were that high. It was Bryan Danielson. If I lose, I'm retiring. He's gone all this way. He's got the title against Swerve, who wasn't really playing the heel, but in that case they had to, because nobody's going to boo against Bryan Danielson at that point. After all the years that Bryan Danielson's put into it, he gave his body, he gave his neck, he gave his concussions and everything. He was told he couldn't do it anymore. He came back. He was told he couldn't bleed in the company that he was in. So he left and he joined another company, and he got put to the top of that. And then it got to that night and got to the main event, and they played his themes. They played his special theme song. They played the Final Countdown by Europe. And you had the entire stadium singing it, and it reduced me to tears. We had some bellend child in front of us who had a sign up for every fucking entrance. So I told the lads who were sat to the right of us, can you move? Because I'm not missing this fucking entrance for some child. So I stood there on my own and nearly fucking wept because I was getting to see him come out and get his flowers again. I was lucky enough to see it happen at WrestleMania 30, where he won the title in New Orleans for WWE, and he got to do it again for AEW. But he got to have his family there that time, and it's it was beautiful. And not many matches have made me release emotion like that did. If I was going to show any kind of wrestling matches for other people, I've got a couple really, because there's, like you say, there's so many different genres that you could go under. For me, myself, I'd show them TLC 2 from WrestleMania 17, because it's just car crash nonsense, and you're showing a lot of the risks that anything can happen. Similarly, I'd show them Undertaker Mankind from Hell in a Cell, because I don't think there's many people who would take the risk that Mick Foley took that night. If you're going to go down the wrestling, not so much the wrestling side, but the pomp and circumstance, I'd show them Rock Hogan from WrestleMania 18. Because everyone knows Rock, everyone knows Hogan. And just to see that reaction that they got, and then just to see how the crowd are not meant to be cheering Hulk Hogan whatsoever, but they don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows the versatility that you need to have on that stage. And to show that The Rock could go, right, okay, I ain't getting cheered here. I'm going to have to change the way that I'm going to do this dance, to put into another term. And he played the heel for the role for the night. It's just, again, it's art. It's high art. And I can't believe I'm saying that about a Hulk Hogan Dwayne Johnson match. But it was that night that it was done to perfection.
Potentially his best ever acting role. Did you say?
Well, arguably, yeah.
Even I've seen that one, to be fair. Does that rank in yours, Jafar, or have you something else?
No. Rather unsurprisingly, well, I've gone for two for my all-time favorite matches. The one that is like my ultimate all-time favorite probably doesn't surprise anyone in saying it's Okada versus Omega. It is the 2 out of 3 Falls match from Dominion in 2018. It's when Omega finally overcome all of his demons. He defeated Okada, who Okada is like the Hulk Hogan of New Japan. You know, he is the golden boy. The belt was on him. He is the guy for Japanese wrestling. And then this gaijin who, you know, this foreigner, as it is in Japanese, to come over and to defeat and to dethrone their golden prince over what was essentially a slog. I think it was almost an hour long, that match. And it was incredible because the two matches that had come before it, the draw especially, when Omega collapsed at the end for the last couple of seconds and didn't get hit by the Rainmaker, which is Okada's finisher, was just it's absolute cinema. You know, it is cinema, and it's a piece of art. And I would say that would definitely be my showcase piece as well. That match. On the other hand, I do pick a Fed match as well. From when I originally liked wrestling, and that would be TLC 1 from SummerSlam 2000. Incredible. The spots that are in that are just insane. They're indicative of what was happening in wrestling at that time and what was to come over the next couple of years. Just absolute pure violence, absolute just nonsense when it comes to wrestling, stuff that people shouldn't be doing to their bodies, especially the Hardys and Edge and Christian. The way that they abused themselves in that ring was just phenomenal. And to see that as a child and to grow up thinking that was pretty normal is kind of funny, really. But yeah, those would be the two that I'd go for as favorite matches. And I'd implore anyone to watch any of the Okada Omega matches if they want to see sort of wrestling showcase and the beauty and cinema that is of wrestling being condensed into 3 matches, and that trilogy is just wonderful.
You mentioned that New Japan. Is that actually like subtitled?
They have English commentators as well.
They have, yeah. So I forget who does the English commentary for it, but it is very, very good. The setup that they have is incredible.
It was the fellow who's gone to AEW, isn't it? Or he was AEW. But...
Oh, I was going to say Nigel McGuinness, but it's not. It's Kelly, Ron Kelly, yeah, Chris Kelly.
He was good while he was there. Then he signed for AEW. He was absolute dog shit, and then got sacked.
Yeah, Drew's Toys at the front.
So it is as accessible as any of the others, then, really.
Yeah, they've got a streaming set. It's New Japan World, is it, Jafo?
Yeah, New Japan World. It's literally, you go on the website, change it to English. It's easy enough to use.
Oh, perfect. And, well, I was going to say, is there a moment in wrestling history that always gives you goosebumps when you think about it? I think, does that kind of tie in what you've already said? Just, I'm guessing the same for Ash, just with about these Bryan Danielson story.
To a degree. I mean, I'd probably put, if I was going to say a couple of other matches that give me that feeling, would probably be the Mick Foley versus The Rock from Monday Night Raw in 1998 when he won, and they had that sort of issue with WCW where they gave the result. That was an incredible thing, because having somebody who's so normal, who isn't like this sort of like traditional WWE big strong guy, loads of muscles, this normal guy win the WWE title was incredible. And also, as much as I hate the guy now, I think CM Punk returning to wrestling at AEW The First Dance in 2019, that whole feeling of I think that tops him returning to WWE in terms of feeling for me. And I think the crowd sounded even better for the AEW when he returned to wrestling. I thought that was two really, really special moments that bookend where we are now and where we were with wrestling.
That CM Punk one. So, Stu, obviously you're going to be aware. So CM Punk was unceremonious. Look, he threw his toys out the pram, fucked off, and then was sacked by WWE. And then basically, on his wedding day. And then he pretty much just retired for 8 years. And then there was a rumor that he was going to be coming back, and they sold like 20,000 seat stadium on this rumor that he might be coming back. And yeah, when Living Colour hit, it was incredible. Like, I stopped up till 3 a.m. because it was Friday Night Rampage, wasn't it? I think, yeah, I'm sure it was Rampage.
Right, a fucking Rampage.
Yeah, so Friday night, 3 a.m. our time, but it's like, nah, he might be coming back, so I've got to stop up. And I'm with Jafar, like, fuck CM Punk, but that was incredible. Like, that's a moment for me. You've mentioned, like, Mick Foley, Mankind being thrown off the Hell in the Cell. That's incredible. Mick Foley, when he transformed from Mankind into Cactus Jack, that was cool as fuck. And again, if you don't know wrestling, that he's just basically gone from one character to another, but like the most violent version of himself. Like, it was just amazing. The one that got me is, again, from All In 2024, was the return of Nigel McGuinness. There'd been rumours that he could wrestle. So he was going to sign with WWE, and then he failed a blood test. So he had, what was the blood disease that he had? Hepatitis? Yeah, I think he had Hep C. Yeah, Hep C. So they couldn't basically sign him, and he just decided to retire off the back of that. And that was it. He seemed to be quite happy doing his commentary work, and he was never really going to wrestle again, but he could. He still kept in good trim. And then when fucking in the bushes hit in Wembley Stadium, the whole place just went absolutely apeshit. Like, because Nigel McGuinness is one of the guys who probably would have been a founding father of AEW had he still been around wrestling. Like, his style really transcended everything. And I think he's one of the most important wrestlers in those terms. Like him and Danielson, they'd laid the groundwork for something like AEW to exist.
He didn't win though, did he? Didn't win that match.
Sadly not.
I think mine, it's, apart from Danielson winning it All In 24, it's pretty easy because they say he's one of my guys. He's always been one of my guys. But in 2011, I was at my first WrestleMania, WrestleMania 27, was at Edge's last match before he got told he could never wrestle again because of his neck. Fast forward to 2020, and he returned. It was never going to happen, and it should never have happened, but it did. And that just unbelievable. The road that he went down, the fact that he got told he could never do what he wanted to do again, and that he got to do it again. And just seeing him come out, and you can watch his emotion on his face when he hear that cheer, and you can see him nearly go, and the bottom lip was quivering. And then similarly, the year after, even if it was under lockdown, when Christian returned, and Christian's my guy, like he is my guy, but there was a moment there where Edge was already in the ring, Christian comes out, and they got a moment to hug. Their childhood school friends, their story, if any filthy casual wants to see it, Edge and Christian's story together is one of just beauty. Being friends from six years old, I think, going to the same school, training together, going to the same company, Christian going away, coming back, retiring through different necks and concussions, and then the fact that they got to both come back and they got to have that moment of hugging each other in the ring. I bawled at that. 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're two sweaty men are hugging, and adults in tears. And then you fast forward, and they get to do their feud. It was, when did he come back? When did Copeland come to AEW? What pay-per-view was it? World's End? I can't remember what pay-per-view it was.
I think it was World End.
Yeah.
And they do the post-match interview, the post-match post-pay-per-view scrum, and someone asks Adam Copeland why he's here, and he says that his daughters want him to go and have fun with Uncle Jay, and it's just, yeah, you bastards, you got me.
So you said then about how he was told he was never gonna wrestle again, and you had the same thing with Bryan Danielson as well. Is it a thing where the bodies just naturally heal over time and they get fixed, or is it more part of the story? Because I've thought that before. I thought, are they really out? Are they just having a break and it's been exaggerated, or is that real as well?
I suppose you can argue that, but for 7 years is a bit of a fucking coincidence. That's a long time to be out. And the fact that he had to go out and do Vikings, and he did Haven. Was it Haven? Was that the nonsense show?
Was it? I think it was, wasn't it?
That was another thing. He did this nonsense show Haven, and he got Christian in that show to play his mate. And you're just like, what the fuck are you two doing? Like, how have you got so good in life that you can just get in and play each other's mates in different TV shows, you prick? But no, some of the times you can sort of tell when it's a work. So a work would be a fake injury or a faked situation. But say they didn't work you with Edge's injury where they stopped a match or anything like that. He won his match. He had the title. Then the next week he was, yeah, I need to go now. Like, I've been told I can't wrestle again. And then that was it.
I think there is an element with WWE where Christian never retired, did he? He was retired. He didn't retire.
Yeah.
So the WWE basically said, we will never clear you to perform for us again. And I think that's happened with Paige Saraya. She had a bad neck injury, and they told her, you'll never wrestle here again.
Fighting with my family.
Yes, yeah. But then her contract ended, and then she went to wrestle for AEW for a couple of years. Rumors are she's going back to the Fed now, but whatever. Yeah, it's no great loss, to be perfectly honest. But so I think there is an element of their own doctors will try and protect them, whereas
if you're a wrestler, you're going to want to wrestle, aren't you? So you'll do what you can to get back in the ring.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I was thinking, was it last year where the last 20 minutes of the WrestleMania where it was basically like Spider-Man Far From Home?
Endgame.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Avengers Endgame. That nonsense.
And I know Matt was getting very excited about all that at the same time, and me, as 3 times a year kind of person, I was obviously they were catering towards that, but that was very entertaining. It's squealing at that time of the night, and watching telly for no other reason. That I mean that for me. I mean, I remember people talking about that the next day, and like people who don't even I never knew watch wrestling ever were talking about that, but. I'm guessing that's the kind of one of the things that pisses you all off because it is the filthy casual market.
No, that would have been a 10 out of 10. It's only a 9 out of 10. It would have been 10 out of 10 if they'd have got Austin where Undertaker came in. If Austin had come out and stunned The Rock, that would have been perfect.
I mean, they might as well have done this. Undertaker didn't do anything at all.
He's MAGA Taker now, anyway. He's retired the hat. He's now MAGA Taker.
Does retiring the hat? No. Is he wearing a red one now? Who knows? Most underrated wrestler then, Jafo. Give me someone I'm not going to know who this is.
Oh, both. But I've got 2 people on here, and I don't think you'll know either of them. So first is one of my personal favorites. They're both from a group called Schadenfreude, which I'm assuming Andy and Ash will be very aware of. So the first one is Chris Brooks, local lad to us, fantastic wrestler, absolutely insane technician, really, really good, proper lock you up in all sort of holds, loves submission style wrestling, who's gone to DDT, which is a very small niche Japanese pro wrestling company that does like stuff in water parks, wrestling matches with elephants involved. The most bullshit thing you've ever imagined watching, right? Absolutely incredible. He should be wrestling for AEW or WWE, one of the big ones, because he is as good as like Zack Sabre Jr. is in New Japan in terms of wrestling ability. And then the other one is somebody who is actually in AEW, but I don't think has got as a bigger push as his teammate, and that's Mark Davis, Dunkzilla. Incredible. When he was in Fight Club Pro, which is a local wrestling company in Wolverhampton, and he was champion of that, he was incredible. He is like watching, say, somebody like Samoa Joe, somebody who's a complete powerhouse, uses every ounce of his body to destroy opponents and doesn't seem to take bumps in the same way. And I remember watching him in a Fight Club Pro show against somebody used it also on AEW, who I haven't seen for a little bit, called Eddie Kingston, who's like this very sort of like stereotypical New Yorker, doesn't give a fuck. And that match where they literally beat 7 stages shit out of each other, destroyed each other, put each other through tables, I was like, this is incredible. And he's somebody who should be pushed to the moon, Mark Davis, because he has all the traditional elements of a wrestler. He does very, very well. And those two would be a cornerstone of any wrestling company.
Interesting. So go for the flip side then.
Who overrated? Yeah, I mean, it's probably not. One of them might surprise you too. But one is definitely not. I'd say Goldberg. I think Goldberg is just a joke. He's always been a joke of wrestling. Even when he was in WCW, he was nothing but a sideshow attraction. And then when he was in WWE, he became pretty much a joke. And the other one, I might take some heat for it, but I think Randy Orton's massively overrated. I think his wrestling ability is limited. I think he's nothing on what his family lineage that came before him. I think his dad was a better wrestler, and I think in terms of his actual ability, okay, he's got a fantastic finisher, which is like the end move in a wrestling match, the RKO, which everyone will know through social media, people recreating it and stuff like that, or people joking and laughing about it. But outside of that, he's not really got anything. If he still did his other finisher, which is the curb stomp, I think, maybe, he'd still be considered pretty good, but I think overall he's just a little bit tiresome. And his attitude outside of wrestling has always been something to be less than desired.
Randy Orton for you as well, Andy.
He was one of the 3 names I've got written down. I just find him boring as fuck. I don't get the hype at all. He's just like a modern day Triple H. Triple H would be on that list as well. I don't think he's a very interesting wrestler. He's always been somebody whose career has been trying to ape other wrestlers. Like, he just wanks off over 70s, 80s Ric Flair. Like, that was pretty much his career. I'd throw his clickmate Shawn Michaels in there. He's good, but I think the problem is because we had this monopoly where WWE was the only game in town for so long, they got to rewrite history of professional wrestling. So for so long, all the documentaries were telling us Shawn Michaels is the greatest wrestler who's ever lived. The Undertaker is like, the paragon of fucking professional wrestling. And he's fucking shit. Like, so many people would bang on about how Dave Meltzer, who's like a he's a professional wrestling journalist and has been doing it since the 70s, I think. Like, he's been doing it forever. And he didn't give Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker a 5-star rating. And a 5-star Dave Meltzer is like, the most important thing in the world to some people. It's not that good a match. Like, it's kind of boring. You know where it's going. It's very plodding because it's 2 old cunts who are well past their sell-by date at this point. So Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, no, they do very little for me. On the flip side, underrated, I've got 2 Fed guys. You'll know one of them, Stu, I reckon. Andrew Martin, Test.
Yeah.
Remember Test? Test. I think, Test. He was like, there was a meme that went around a few years ago about big meaty men slapping meat. And that's what Test was. Like, he was just this big jacked fuck. I mean, ultimately, that's what killed him because steroid abuse. But I think if he was around now, if he was clean, he would be, just the top of every card because he had the look and he could go in the ring. Test versus Brock Lesnar in a King of the Ring qualifier. And you could tell that at this point, Brock Lesnar his name was the next big thing. That was his gimmick. And Test had that where he was the next big thing, but didn't quite make it. I think because basically Stephanie McMahon was dating him and then cheated on him with Triple H in real life. And I think that stopped his momentum. And Test was clearly pissed off at this. So Test and Brock Lesnar just went out there to beat the piss out of each other for like 10 minutes. And it's one of the hardest hitting matches I've ever seen. It's great. And the other wrestler I've got on the list, Taz. Do you remember Taz at all, Stu?
Yeah.
Taz, I think, is a big reason why wrestling changed the way it is to how it is now, where you don't necessarily need to be 6'8" and just, kick punch. That you can do ground base, you can do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can do different styles. I think Taz was a big component of that. So those are my 2 underrated guys.
Excellent. And you say Randy Orton as well for a 3?
No, because he likes gaming. Like, he gets he's the more he's aged, the more I've warmed to him. He seems to just not give a fuck. He's got his family, so like he is what he is. He's just robotic. He's just a part of the Fed machine now. He is just generic creator wrestler. I think he's taken advantage of, say, his name and his friends, and he's got to where he has. But that's just wrestling 101, isn't it? To be honest, my overrated. He's currently a part of the US government. Fucking Kane. Kane's the drizzling fucking shit, man. He always has been. There was a period in 01, late 2000 and late 01, where he was clearly roided to the fucking gills, but he was fucking moving like a beast. And that was probably the best where he was. But he comes in as Red Undertaker. There was never a character with him. Then they take his mask off him. Oh, and then he gets the part in See No Evil, which probably his best performance where he's in a film. But yet we've had to suffer through it for however fucking many years. And he just lumbers around. He's fucking useless. You could probably throw Big Show in there as well. He's fucking garbage. And yet he's continued to keep going. And it's just pointless. Underrated. You won't know it, the other two will. Claudio Castagnoli. How he has never won a world title on one of the biggest stages is fucking beyond me. The man, he moves, for the size of the boy, he moves like an absolute fucking flyweight. And his strength is unfucking paralleled. Like, he does a move called this, I don't know, is it the Claudio swing? I don't know what it's called now. It was called the Cesaro swing when he was in the Fed and he was Cesaro.
Oh,
where
I know those.
Yeah, and he flings them around for however many rotations. It's unreal how he can move. He's one of the best workers I've seen. And he just never got that chance. Like, he went to the Fed and because he couldn't speak good enough English, and then he got stuck with a shit gimmick, and he just laundered around. Another one I'd go for, again, she's technically in AEW. She's starting to get a move onto the AEW roster, but Athena, ever since she turned up, when she was Ember Moon in NXT, she's been superb. And hopefully now she'll start to get moving up, because I think she's going to get put into a program with Mercedes, and hopefully that'll get her the showcase she needs to go further up.
Excellent. Well, yeah, you mentioned it there about gimmicks. And you can elaborate all you want about gimmicks in wrestling, and is it a good or bad thing? But what makes a great wrestling character or gimmick, and who nailed it the best? Straight back at you.
I think before this sort of new age, and obviously it worked more overseas, but for what he is, I think Undertaker had it down pat. Like, you read all the stories where he stayed in character and everyone thought he was an actual zombie Undertaker. For as shit as he is, like, he's never been a good wrestler ever, but he was down pat. Like, he was the Undertaker. It was like you saw people scared of the fucker, and it's just like, I don't understand how it worked. So he was a good gimmick. I think El Generico was a good gimmick. It's not even a gimmick. He was superb. He's been sadly lost to the rest of the world. I think I heard he was killed in Mexico. I don't know where he is, but we will raise a toast to El Generico wherever he is now.
That one always gets me, I'm telling you. Those poor orphans. At least they survived, but poor Generico, he actually on lost.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good gimmicks there was. I'm going to go back to him again, but Edge and Christian, the shit-eating pretty boys doing their 5-second photography, you just couldn't beat it. Just coming down, taking the piss out of a crowd in every city in whatever way they could. It just got mega heat everywhere they went. With the hillbillies and the fucking the Fat Elvis costumes was the absolute peak. It never got topped.
Is that the key to a gimmick then? Humour, Andy?
I think it depends on what you want to achieve. I think, you do have to have an element of humour. So, like, I was going to talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think he's the one who really embraced the gimmick and the gimmick change. So when Austin came back to WWF, as it was, he was the ringmaster in his sort of final run. He was the ringmaster, which was basically $1 Million Man's bitch. And that's not who Steve Austin was. Like, he wasn't a rich boy growing up, so he didn't really make sense to align him with $1 Million Man. And I think, he was all but sacked He was given one chance to like basically create your own character and see if that works. And he sort of got into the zeitgeist of the times, I feel, by becoming this uber redneck, which I think is kind of what Steve Austin is anyway.
Yeah.
Like they always say the best gimmicks are the person's personality turned up to 11. And he was, fighting against the man, rallying against the boss of the company. And that's how he did it. But also I think with Austin, he had very good comic timing with it as well. And the other one who I'd want to mention is Kurt Angle, who I think is one of the funniest wrestlers who's ever lived, but he could also go like nobody's business. I think if you watch the different lives of Kurt Angle throughout his Fed and TNA run, and you had everything from someone who was this dork to someone who would like hanging out with Edge and Christian as well, doing like, the silly kazoo nonsense and all that fun. But then he turned and just became this wrestling machine who would murder people. And underneath all that, he had comic timing like nobody else. And I do think the comedy is important because I think that helps you connect with people in a way that just being a miserable cunt doesn't always work.
Well, you'd think most of the time that'd appeal straight for you, but
You think?
I think Austin worked at that time because he was the anti-authority, blue collar. I want to uprise against my boss, and everyone loves the guy who he did what you wanted to do. Like he stunned your boss. He stunned his boss, and you always go into work and you're like, I'd love to fucking knock you out, and he just went and did it continuously. I don't know if he knew what was he knew what Vince McMahon really was, but
I think everyone knew. He's the one of the very few wrestling podcasts I've ever listened to as well, and it is very good. But he is an entertaining bloke. Well, Steve Austin. Jafo, is yours No Way Jose?
No, it's actually Fandango. No, joking.
I think to be fair, Fandango, he got over that WrestleMania 29. That was a shit fucking show. But I was one of the ones in Times Square after WrestleMania 29 that was Fandangoing at Times Square. He was over for that hour.
He did as best he could with what he had. I'm not gonna knock the bloke. But I think surprisingly, when we talk about gimmicks and stuff, I think the key word for me is being a sort of a chameleon and change into the times. And with that, I think the greatest gimmick creator of all time, Chris Jericho, should top any sort of list for me. I mean, you got to look at his whole career from when he was wrestling in Mexico and CMLL with Lionheart, what he did in Japan and with WWE with the list and with Y2K and Y2J sort of thing that he did. And then everything that he's done in AEW so far, up until the learning tree, I think that's grinded on a few people, but everything else in his career has pretty much been flawless. And knowing when to pull the trigger and change gimmick is an art form, and Chris knows that better than anyone. He is sort of a goat of wrestling in that regard, and having that ability and that nous to understand the changing in the times and when things are starting to become a little bit tiresome or not enjoyable, he knows when to pull it around and go heel or go face or just destroy a gimmick completely. And I think for that, you've got to be sort of this chameleon and being aware. And I think that's the key thing for me. And Chris encapsulates all of that.
Perfect.
Just don't ask him where his wife was January 6th, 2021.
I mean, talking about wives and wrestlers, if you could bring back one retired wrestler or a legend for one more match, who would he be and who would they face? And why is it not Chris Benoit?
No. I mean, you take the murders away.
Wasn't his fault.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Though I mean, those guys who came over at that time. So you got Perry Saturn, you got Chris Benoit, and the guy who I'm going to pick in Eddie Guerrero, there was something that was so different. I think Eddie, even if Eddie hadn't have passed as early as he did, he would still be up there and he would still be loved and appreciated by everyone in wrestling, because he is everything that people sort of love, and that sort of like rogue-like behavior, twisting the rules and bending them as far as you can, having that sort of like person in wrestling there would fit perfectly with what we want. And if I was going to have him back for one match, I'd kind of pair him against somebody who's not so much that. And with that, I'd like to see him versus Darby Allin. And I think the two of them together would create something a little bit unique, a little bit of violence, which we didn't see a lot of from Eddie. And having somebody like Darby who could work so fast and at a ferocious pace would really sort of push the best from Guerrero. And I think a lot of the matches that he did have, he wasn't really pushed as far as he could have gone within WWE, because it was still at that point evolving. There was still a lot of big guys in there, and sort of high flyers were starting to just push in. He was like one of those that was sort of leading the charge with that. So having him come in now, you know, I was tempted to put him against somebody like an Omega or an Ospreay for the similar sort of reason, that he would be able to be pushed in, and we would see the utmost wrestling ability that we could from Guerrero. But I think Darby Allin, just for that sort of duality of the match and the so different styles, that it would create a Meltzer 7-star match probably.
What does that mean?
So it would break the Meltzer scale again, so it would go above the 5-star match. So it's only happened a few times, but I think that probably would be up there.
Excellent. Andre?
I've not actually gone just retired. I've gone with dead, and it's Terry Funk, who I thought Jafo, for some reason I thought you might have gone with the Terry Funk match. I mean, he didn't retire until 2017, I think, Terry Funk. I think he was like 70-something when he finally hung up his boots. He was one who I don't think ever really wanted to retire, to be perfectly honest. But the one thing about the Terry Funk match is that I got to see, because by the time I was watching wrestling, Terry Funk was an old man then, let alone 20 years later when he was still going. He was pretty much a hardcore wrestler at that point in his career, but going back and seeing the stuff before, he was a bit of a brawler. Like, he could fight like nobody's business. So to complement that, I would love to see him against another brawler, someone who can hold their own on the microphone, much like Terry Funk could do. And I think Terry Funk versus Eddie Kingston would burn the house down. And quite literally burn the house down, because I think they're two maniacs who would go all out. They would do absolutely everything they can, leave it all on the line to give the best to the audience. And I think that would be just one hell of a match. It's two guys for me who make wrestling look, quote unquote, real. Like, it looks like a fight when you see those guys, because it's not pretty, and it shouldn't really be pretty. So yeah, Terry Funk, Eddie Kingston for me.
Excellent. Ash?
This is the one that fucking I tried to put so many different matches in on my own that would work, and I'd go with I was tempted to go with two different retired ones, because the one I'm going with is Bret Hart, because as he says the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. And I wanted to put him against Pete Kurt Angle, because I think they would have just been sublime together. But much like Jafo said with Darby mixing with Eddie, I think Bret Hart versus Orange Cassidy would have the makings of a superb match. I think if you go down the super serious Bret model, and he comes up against Orange Cassidy and his absolute wrestle crap, hands in pockets nonsense, and you play that down the card of Bret getting frustrated because he's doing all the hands in pocket stuff, I think you'd have the potential for an absolute barnstormer there. because then when Orange is up and he gets going, he's up there with the best of them when he gets going. I think that would work.
Interesting. Have you ever done any of these like legacy games, any of the games?
Oh, you mean like putting
Yeah, like-
people versus?
Yeah, like you
I-
can. I know you used to be able to do it in fight nights and things like that.
I don't think I've not seen any. I think like obviously you get certain things, but you go in cross promotional there with stuff like that. I think so. I don't know if that would work for my one anyway.
Interesting. We'll skip that. You mentioned about cross promotion. How do you feel about the different promotions? Obviously, you mentioned the Fed and AEW and the New Japan. What sets them apart? Thoughts on the current landscape? Since you brought it up, Ash.
It's for the different levels, isn't it? For me personally, like I don't watch a lot of the Fed anymore. I'll watch a Royal Rumble because the Royal Rumble's fun. And you take a minor interest. You'll take a minor interest now in WrestleMania, especially now it's on Netflix. But it's 2 nights, and you just can't commit to 2 nights. But it's like you say, it's for the filthy casuals. Like you don't have to be into the wrestling per se because they have the celebrities, they have all the gravitas, and it's polished, and it's this beautiful fucking thing. But if you're more of a sicko, to coin a quote from Tony Khan himself, you're going to go towards, if you go in Western, you go towards more of an AEW, which is, I'd say it's more of a hybrid, turning into more of a hybrid now of a WWE and New Japan, because it is getting a little bit more storyline orientated with certain things, with a bit of sicko added on if you watched the last Swerve Strickland Hangman Adam Page match, because that would definitely not fly in WWE. I would have said New Japan would have been more for the artiste. You're there for the art of it, I think. So I'd say for potentially us three, we'd enjoy it. But I could not see Stu watching a New Japan match because I don't think you'd enjoy it as much because it's more about the art of it.
So
Whereas you can stick to your polished turd.
It's almost like you're comparing the Premier League, the Championship, and Corinthians in Brazil. It is almost you. Is that out of the realms of fantasy? And is it comparing them through like that, like you just describe it as?
I think it's quite fair, actually. So like, I pretty much haven't watched any WWE stuff since AEW started 6 years ago. I've seen maybe 3 or 4 shows, and every time I see it, it feels so different to the time before because it just feels more Blu-ray every time. Like when I stopped watching it, it was DVD, and then it was Blu-ray, then it was HD DVD, and it just keeps moving on, and it just feels so shiny and plasticky and completely inauthentic as a show about wrestling. Like it just doesn't. If you're a casual, I'm sure you will love the lights and the entrances and shouting yeet like a cunt. Like I'm sure you'll love that nonsense. But I think that's only if you have this very passing interest, and wrestling isn't the most important thing to WWE. Like quite literally on WWE TV in the last sort of couple of months, they do 2 shows a week, which are both 3 hours long in Raw and SmackDown. And I think there's less than 2 hours worth of actual wrestling across 6 hours worth. Like that just isn't, if you don't like wrestling, it's the best wrestling show for you, which is not really the point of wrestling to me. New Japan is great, and the matches are like unparalleled, really. I mean, I say they're unparalleled. I think AEW's in ring is ass good ass. but New Japan has got this different feel to it. Like strong style is a thing, and I think that very much is bred into New Japan wrestling. So it's quite different. Like you say, it's Corinthians because it's the same sport in a complete different world. Whereas I think AEW mixes the two because they do have some of the showy side, some of the sports entertainment as it's coined, but they do go in the ring. Like I think most of the best matches of the last 6 years, they have pretty much all been in AEW compared to any other company. They really have just blown everything out of the water, mostly because they signed the best guys from New Japan as well. I think that helps. But yeah, I think that would be a fair assessment.
And since I had never heard of New Japan until an hour and 30 minutes ago. Go and sell me. What are they go spot on there? Is it the niche interest?
Yeah, I think it can be. I mean, I was considering putting an actual New Japan wrestler in the underrated section as well in Shingo Takagi, and I think a lot of that with New Japan wrestling is it kind of blurs the line between wrestling and say MMA, and this, as Andy said earlier, the strong style, it puts physical violence into wrestling and it makes it realer than ever. And to see sort of that blurring of the lines where you don't actually know anymore, and kayfabe becomes a reality, which is like this idea that wrestling is real and you should be treated as such, and none of it's fake. It kind of blurs that line of kayfabe again, and that 80s belief of wrestling is this, and we should live in these sort of traditions of, okay, the heels stay together, the faces stay together, the good guys and the bad guys are always separate outside of the ring as well, even when they're traveling. It kind of feels like that with New Japan, and that's the way that they still do things. They treat it with a lot of respect. I think the only thing that might put a lot of people off with New Japan is how quiet it is. And I think the Japanese crowds treat wrestling with respect in terms of they sit there, they listen, they watch, and they appreciate it, and they don't make any noise, because that's the way Japanese people are. And I think that might put people off and might put people think that, oh, actually, no, people aren't enjoying what they're watching. And I think, sort of tagging on to the other part of your question with thoughts on the current pop landscape, I think WWE has a lot to be thankful for from New Japan and AEW, because I think WWE was getting at a crossroads within its business of going off a cliff and maybe even potentially ceasing to exist. And now they've taken guys from AEW, they've taken Penta, they've taken Ray Phoenix, they've taken Cody Rhodes, who was nothing but a joke project in terms of WWE when he was there, and he had the gimmick of Stardust. They've taken guys who WWE didn't want, polished them, and given them back in almost a sense, and they've forced WWE to push themselves to another level and to become this sort of like Marvel company, where they are like the Avengers almost of wrestling. They've got all these really, really set roles of good and bad guys, but they've taken guys who proven themselves in other businesses who originally may not have been wanted at WWE, and they should be awfully thankful for Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Cody Rhodes when they created AEW with Tony Khan, and it's everything that's been done in Japan with New Japan, and them pushing that sort of strong style wrestling into the West, and the excursions that they do into America and the shows that they do there, because it is rebirthed wrestling, and we're in this sort of golden age now where anyone can enjoy wrestling again, because everyone's pushing everyone else to be better than they were on the last show, and I think that's healthy.
Is being a wrestling fan better in the post kayfabe world for you, Ash? Since you're the one who attends these things more than anyone else by the sense of it.
It's weird because obviously we're all smarter now. We all read and stuff like that. I do kind of wish I lived in a time of you didn't know everything. Like when it comes to Royal Rumble season, I will, if I am going on Twitter, I'll mute anything because of the Royal Rumble, you expect some returns and some surprises, and they'll get spoiled. And I think that's the worst part of it. Like, you don't want these things being spoiled. And I get that these journalists, inverted commas, that's how they make their money and stuff like that. But I think it spoils a lot of the charm of wrestling. Like, we didn't know Nigel McGuinness was coming out at All In, and that reaction. But if you know, that reaction is spoiled, and I think it's ruined now. Similarly, like, I would have liked to have gone to a time where everyone believed the Undertaker was a real dead man and stuff like that, because it looks more fun, it looks more innocent, it looks more thing in that sort of sense. And you think that these people hate each other and whatnot, and it would have been cool to go back to that time. So as much of a positive as social media and stuff like that has, like, it's ruined wrestling in that sense. It's broken that kayfabe wall, and it can never come back now.
Interesting. And they explain what this even means.
So yeah, kayfabe is basically the belief that wrestling is real. Like Jafo said, good guys would travel with good guys, bad guys would travel with bad guys, because if somebody saw The Undertaker with Hulk Hogan after, Tuesday in Texas, people would question why these heated enemies were, in the same car together. I know that's basically that's basically what kayfabe means. So the term smart means that, you're smartened to the business. You know that it's a predetermined outcome. And I think post kayfabe, in a world where we're all smartened up to the business, like, it's good because you get to just enjoy it for what it is. But at the same time, would it be better if we really thought these people hated each other? If we thought that Swerve Strickland's house was really burnt down by Hangman Adam Page, would that be a better world? Maybe. Because it would be exciting to see it and feel the emotions more, maybe. Because it would be heightened. Now you just appreciate it for the storyline that it is. But to believe it, that would be something completely on a different plane.
Would you really want to believe that Vince got his daughter pregnant, though?
I wouldn't put it past him, man. Like, I'll be honest, I still believe that now.
I wouldn't want to believe that he sexually assaulted all those women, but here we are. Yeah.
Well, that documentary opened a few eyes. Not to yeah, I was gonna say not to people who know this stuff anyway and listen to watch Dark Side of the Ring and stuff like that. But I mean, I'll go off piece it. Well, you mentioned that it not being real. Did anyone actually think that Cena would ever go heel?
Not at this point. The time for him to do it was after the first Rock match, and he was meant to. They'd done a new theme song. He had no new gear, and then the Dark Lord decided that he's not going to do it. He wanted to keep his cash cow good. So I think that was the time that everyone thought it was going to be, and then obviously he's on his retirement tour now, and they decided to go with it now, which is absolutely wild.
Yeah, he's not the merch shifter that he was. Sorry,
yeah, that would exactly what I was going to say, though, Andy, to be fair. I think the fact that now he isn't the number one seller at WWE allows it to be easier. I think there's definitely room now that they're not going to impact themselves financially by turning him into a bad guy.
But he's still shifting more merch. He's shifting more merch now. He's a heel.
I think because Vince McMahon never understood that people like bad guys. I think that was a thing. Like, he would have still been like the biggest thing in that company, even if he was a heel, because it's just the way it is. Because you'd have the people who've always supported him would continue to support him. You'd have the smart marks, so that is a mark is somebody who wants to be part of it, basically. So you have those smarky pricks. They would then support him because they wanted him to turn heel, so they'd be on his side, and they think they're better than everyone anyway. So they would probably have sold twice as many fucking t-shirts if they'd have turned him heel back then. But I mean, it's easy to say that from this point of view. Obviously, Vince McMahon was in the business much longer, and I'm sure he knows best.
Well, that is probably why he broke Twitter then when that happened. If it wasn't this much of a shock, because again, the same people were talking about it the next day. Like, I think he was even on Good Morning Britain that he was mentioned on there. But then, what isn't anymore with Richard Maid? What's the most memorable live event you've been to, if any? Which I'm sure you've all have anyway. So, most memorable than Andy.
I mean, like, as a slight spoiler for the next question, I got to see the greatest wrestler who ever lived in the main event at All In 2024. Getting to see Bryan Danielson lift the title at that event, as Ash has mentioned, against Swerve Strickland, who has been one of my favourite wrestlers since I first saw him in Lucha Underground in 2014. I got to see him in Wolverhampton as well, Strickland. So like, it was just really cool. It was amazing. It was top to bottom, full of just incredible matches throughout. It was an awesome event. So All In is like, I mean, that'll probably never be topped, to be perfectly honest. The other event I had a great time at was it was in Wolverhampton at the Diamond Banqueting Suite, and the Elite came over. So it was Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, taking on Wolverhampton's own Trent Seven, Tyler Bate from Dudley, and Pete Dunne from Birmingham. And it was just such a fucking cool event. And it was just brilliant. And like I say, it was in Wolverhampton. I had to miss Wolves versus Brighton, but I think we lost 2 or 3-0. So that was no sacrifice at all on my part.
Well, it's Brighton now. These things happen. Blue by curse. When you already went into yours, Ash, didn't you? You were almost in tears talking about it anyway. I'm guessing that's the same again for this one.
It's one of two. It's both. They're both contingent on Bryan Danielson winning. It's either All In 2014, or it's WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. New Orleans was more because of the place. Like, I love New Orleans as a place. I think it's marvelous, and say you're getting to walk around. The city was just overrun with wrestling fans. You could talk to people. The amount of I drank my body weight in frozen daiquiris. I got to see Taker lose his streak. That was something to behold. Again, that goes back to kayfabe and stuff like that. Nobody knew he was going to lose like this. It was this protected thing. He was never losing at WrestleMania, etc., etc. And then he just lost. And the stunned silence in the arena was something to behold. But then it ended the night with confetti going down everywhere, and Bryan Danielson overcoming the odds. And everyone just went home happy. So that it's one of two, but either way, it's whatever Bryan Danielson main events. That's perfect.
Superb. Jafar, have you got one at home and away?
Yeah, I guess in a way. My first is probably the first All In, because it was the first time I got to see Kenny Omega live, and anybody who knows anything about me knows that Kenny Omega is literally like everything to me as a wrestler. So actually get to see him live was incredible. The other one, I'm going really, really niche, and it's actually just a random Fight Club Pro event, and it's Rebellion from 2019. And so it's got some of the most random wrestlers on the show, but there was a La Bestia 666 was one of the most incredible luchadors I've ever seen live. And to see sort of this like incredible style of wrestling, and I think this Mexican style of wrestling is just fun. It's just fun to watch, and the show from top to bottom was really, really good. There was really good guys. Iri Shigiro. I'm terrible with names, but Iri Shigiro versus Kyle Fletcher, incredible match. Mark Davis was on that show as well. Really, really good. From top to bottom, fantastic show. And just to have it in front of, like, say, 100 or 150 people, sometimes these sort of like more intimate, smaller shows they hold more weight. They're just more enjoyable. And being able to see guys that you really, really enjoy as close up, and so much so that I remember seeing the Lucha Brothers at an event there, and I was that close to them that I could smell the Tiger Balm on Penta. And it's moments like that you never forget. It's like having little special stupid things that you can remember make those sort of smaller events way more memorable and way more important to your whole life as a wrestling fan.
Okay, there. I was going to say, but I'll just throw one more in. So I don't think it's been mentioned. Is wrestling the most nepotistic entertainment medium ever?
It can be.
Yeah. Like we're at the point now where we've got like 4th generation performers in the business. I think even compared to Hollywood, I think pretty much everyone who's got a child who's a wrestler, that child then becomes a wrestler or part of that world, or their wife or whoever. Like I do think it is probably the most heavily nepotistic of all of the media forms.
And it kind of makes sense, I guess. But you grow up around that world. You be part of that world. You've got no escape, really. Talking about not having an escape and being immortalized forever. You Rushmore of wrestlers. Can be dead, could be controversial, don't really care. Wrestling ability, likability, go for it. Go on, Jeffo. Top 4.
So I was going to do a certain way, but then I've changed it slightly. So I've done with guys that I've actually seen and appreciated within their lifetime of wrestling. First was a guy who was retired last year. Was it? Yeah, last year at an AEW event in London, and that was not London. He was in America, sorry, and that was Sting. Sting is everything that WWE thinks the Undertaker is. He is mysterious. He's he's powerful. He can do things that just don't seem human. But to see him flying off a balcony at 50 years old, jumping into a bunch of people, smashing his body around, I applaud that man. And to have his send off with his kids in the ring when they were dressed as Surfer Sting and the blonde hair and everything, incredible. Wolfpack Sting. Yeah, I couldn't think what the other one was, but yeah, the Wolfpack Sting when he came in the leather jacket, incredible. Another one I talked about him earlier, sort of Chris Jericho. I think he is getting a lot of hate at the moment for where he is in his career. But once he retires, people will realize how much of a positive impact that he's had and how much that he's taken from wrestling in all these different countries. And he put everything together from the early days of sort of WWF and WWE to Japanese styles, Mexican styles, and what is now this sort of like modern amalgamation of all of it. He's somebody who's been through it. He's transcended generations of wrestling. And he can still do a Lion Salt. He still did one in a Dynasty. He still did put on a fairly good show. Not the best. He's obviously not at the peak of his powers anymore, but he still puts on a reasonable show, and plays upon every parts of his character that he can. And within that, there's the last 2 guys. I'll end on a rather not surprising one, but the next one, sort of Terry Funk. We talked about it earlier. I think Terry Funk, that sort of hardcore brawler style, and what then became sort of ECW and what came out of Japanese style death matches, and all that sort of blended of reality and what is real and what's not, and real blood and bleeding the hard way, and giving every ounce of your body to wrestling. And to entertaining people. You have to put your hands down to Terry, because everything that he did, we wouldn't have had Mankind. We wouldn't have, everything that Mick Foley did afterwards, we wouldn't have had that. We wouldn't have had all these super aggressive matches afterwards. This whole deathmatch style is kind of like, could be put back to him bringing it and moving it from Japan, and where it was a very, very niche thing, and moving it into the West. He's sort of one of those people at the head of that and the turning point of it. I think finally my 4th one is who I think is the greatest wrestler of all time and should be considered, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, and that's Kenny Omega. And Kenny is somebody who has pushed himself. He moved himself from Canada and moved himself to Japan and pushed himself through DDT, did the hard yards. He become the first Gaijin to win the G1. He dethroned Japan's biggest ever star in Okada, and then he moved to the US. He's won countless titles in AEW, and he's overcome diverticulitis, which could have killed him. Let's not forget, he could have been dead now, but he's overcome that. He's back in the ring, and he looks as good as ever. He is an absolute machine, and the best belt machine, the belt collector, whatever you want to call him, the cleaner. He lives up to it, and he lives, eats, drinks, sleeps pro wrestling, and he is forever and will always be my goat. And I love him and appreciate him and everything that he's done for this sport.
Wonderful. Get emotional with that. Ash, you're immortal Stone Forsen.
I've gone back and forth over the fourth one. I'm gonna go from bottom to top. The top two are obvious, so there's no real surprise with them. I don't want to put him in because of how high he is now, but one of them is Cody Rhodes, because it's not because of where he is now. It's because like a stock. I was in on him when he was tagging with Hardcore Holly. Like, that's when I got on board with Cody Rhodes. I was there before Legacy. I was there with him when he was dashing Cody Rhodes. I've got a picture with him when he was disfigured, undashing Cody Rhodes. And then to see him where he's gone from that to the storyline with his brother and dad against the Shield, to the awful Stardust nonsense, which was disheartening. To see him then go and then leave and bet on himself, and he got to go around and he went to all these different promotions. And then he went to TNA and he went to New Japan, and then he helped start AEW, did all that stuff with AEW. Then whatever's happened, and he left AEW and he went back to WWE and he got the deals he wanted. And now he's finally getting his flowers. I'd say I don't watch as much WWE stuff now, but when he won that title, it was just like, good for you, kid. Like, you deserve it. He might be the most polished, like, WWE fed carny of all time, but as somebody who's followed his career now, it was good to see, and I think he's just going to keep going until he wants to. He'd probably be a politician. He's got that fucking chops that he could go into the politics, because he does the fucking, like, you saw it when they were in London, he had the fucking Blue Peter badge. Like, he did the CBBS nonsense. He does the shit. He puts the work in. He's your fed guy. He's the quarterback, isn't he now? And it's good to see him getting those fucking things. As much as his work might not be as good as people want it to be, he's that quarterback guy now. So he was my guy. Second on it is arguably, he's my best wrestler that I've seen. He's the best wrestler ever for me, and it's Bryan Danielson. No words needed. I've spent most of this podcast singing his praises and his journey and stuff like that. I don't really need to speak a lot more, but as I say, I'm lucky enough that I've seen the two biggest moments, and he said himself the best moment of his career was All In London. And I think there was probably not really a dry eye in the house that night. His body of work speaks for itself. I don't think I've seen him have a bad match with anyone. There's not really much words left to see him. And the last two, they go together, like peanut butter and jelly, or maple and leaf, shall we say. It's Edge and Christian. Like, Christian is my guy. Edge again, he was lucky enough to be the taller, the prettier of the two. He got the push, arguably, that I personally think Christian deserved. He got the thing. He got the run that he that Christian deserved for me. Vince saw this 6'4" long blonde haired guy, and he saw you can go, and he got everything. He's had his own troubles with Lita and the Matt Hardy thing, which I think helped propel him. He got the Money in the Bank. He got the extended run as the Rated R superstar that still somehow is still going now. Like, he still calls himself the Rated R superstar, even if it's cope. He had the comeback story. Again, much like Jericho, people are starting to turn on him for being a bit too much, probably in a higher position than he should be. But I think where we're going now, I think it's gonna come good, and I'll probably be a blubbering mess for where it's going. And then Christian is my guy. Like Andy will tell you, I would take a bullet for that man. He was always my guy. I suppose I'm a Wolves fan. I've always loved an underdog. Like, he was the perennial underdog. Like, he was never supposed to succeed. He was only ever Edge's little brother when they were brothers. He was only ever Edge's mate. And then he just got shunned to the side. And when Edge had to retire, he finally got his time as the world champion, for it to end 2 days later because lol Randy Orton. And then he got, like Andy said, he didn't get to retire. He got retired. But then he gets to come back, and then he comes to another company. He goes to AEW, and arguably he's had the best run of his career, being just telling people that their dads are dead. Like, arguably his entire, that's the gimmick. He has to go people because their dads are dead. Yeah, I wish I was joking, but it's not. But I think his in-ring work is arguably some of the most underrated going. Like, you'll hear people saying his footwork is fucking superb. Like, you don't notice it, but the filthy casual really won't notice it. But like, when you watch Christian, he just gets the shit. He got a fucking turtleneck over, for God's sake. But yeah, Christian's my guy. He always will be. So yeah.
Excellent. Is there any crossover for yours, Andy?
Quite a bit, to be fair. I mean, Danielson, I've said several times, he's the best to ever do it. Like, I don't think I've seen him have a bad match. Even like the time that he lost in 17 seconds, like he maximized his minutes there. He knew what he was doing to elicit the response, even though he did nothing in it other than kiss his girlfriend on the side of the apron. He knew how to just put a match together to make the most out of it. He was just incredible. Kenny Omega, as far as I'm concerned, he's the best storyteller that has ever stepped foot in a wrestling ring. Just incredible. And you even saw it like last weekend, Dynasty, him versus Speedball Bailey, who I got to see in a warehouse in Wolverhampton doing chops to somebody's bare foot. Cara Noir. It was brilliant. And Ricochet, who's had like this second life since going to AEW, that triple threat is, I'm sure, on Cage Match, it's currently voted the greatest triple threat match of all time. And this is Kenny Omega post having diverticulitis, as Jafo said. The man nearly died, and he's still putting together absolute works of art in the ring. Incredible. Chris Jericho, it's a little bit controversial now because the last couple of years have not been the best Chris Jericho we've seen. I think it's an age thing because he was going through runs where he would be in WWF, WWE for a couple of years, then he'd have a break and do his band stuff and then come back. But we haven't had that time away from him in the last couple of years. But as Jafo said earlier, he's the master of, evolving his gimmick. He's the wrestling's David Bowie. He could be, the Thin White Duke. He could be Aladdin saying that is what Chris Jericho's done throughout his career. And it's what we're 30-something years, I think we're approaching at this point in his career. Way back, as Jafo said, Lionheart Chris Jericho in Mexico. He had a run in Japan. He's been everywhere. He's probably the most important wrestler still working today because he's the only one who's been everywhere and done it all. I got to see him in the 90s, and I got to see him less than 12 months ago. He's still going. He's still going at a high level. It's just not the level it was. So I think that's why it's a little bit controversial now. You can't take his history away from him. The other one that I've got, which hasn't been mentioned, is Mick Foley. And it's kind of because of what Jafo said about Terry Funk, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because Mick Foley is he's the other half of Terry Funk's equation for me, especially in the American scene. Those two, their death matches abroad that they then brought back to the States, that changed the way wrestling was done for quite a while. So like ECW, I don't think if we didn't have ECW, we wouldn't have had the Attitude Era, because that was pretty much they just fucking raped everything from ECW that they could to try and get it over. Because at that point, WWE, everyone's gimmick was they had a second job. Like, it was a bit shit. But Terry Funk, Mick Foley, and these guys, they brought back this new style, this really interesting thing that then spurred on wrestling for the last 30 years, pretty much since. So Mick Foley's the other one from me. Like, I think it's because he looks a bit like he could be on this podcast. Like, he looks like a normal dude, except for he's 6'5". But
you said about Sheamus as well.
Yeah, he just looks like he could be one of us, sitting around talking, shooting the shit about anything. And I kind of appreciate that in a wrestler. They don't all have to look like gods. Some of them can just look like humans, and that's what I loved about Mick Foley. Is he could be one of us.
Superb. We've got an hour and 44 minutes. There's not been one mention of any female wrestlers.
No, I mentioned one.
In any. So look at the defense. I don't really care, but I just thought Alexa Bliss might get some love. That's all. Is it a thing? I don't know. Because I don't really. It's not my bag. But female wrestlers, discuss.
There's some really great ones working at the moment. There's a match about 4 weeks ago, Timeless Toni Storm versus Mariah May, the first North American 5-star rated match in it might be of all time. It was an incredible story that's had an 18-month build. It was outstanding. Oscar, who works for WWE, I think I haven't seen her for a few years, but when I stopped watching WWE, she was probably the best wrestler in the world for me. She was absolutely incredible. There are some really talented women out there. Unfortunately, I think most of them work for Stardom, which is a Japanese promotion that I don't have. I've seen bits and bobs of, but not enough to have an in-depth conversation about it.
Oh, if you get a chance, you want to see Timeless Toni Storm's shoe, you'd love her. She's absolutely fucking superb.
Yeah.
The commitment to the gimmick was absolutely ridiculous. I forgot to mention at Dynasty on Sunday, the section over from me, there was a girl dressed as Timeless Toni Storm, but greyed out. She'd greyed out her, coloured herself black and white.
Amazing.
Let's look at some pictures there. But I think
she's like a 1950s movie starlet.
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah, I think the biggest thing with women's wrestling is that it's essentially at its starting point, because it was so mistreated by the WWE up to the very end of where the Divas belt existed, and when it sort of become an actual thing, that it's now 30, 40 years behind in terms of a body of work than men's wrestling. And it's similar with football. Women's football is so far behind men's football because it wasn't treated within the same regard or respect as the men's game. And I think with wrestling, it's the same, that you have got such a small pool of very, very good female wrestlers that it's spread so thinly across all of the major promotions that it's hard to get it over and it to be as prominent and as easy to get into as male wrestling.
One thing I will say, the best babyface working right now is Willow Nightingale. In any male film or whatever, she is the one babyface good guy that you just absolutely love. She's infectious. I'd love Willow Nightingale. She's one of my favourites.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Final one before you get it back, Andy. take control again. Will there ever be a WrestleMania in London?
I think they will. I think they will try and diversify, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got a London, a Munich, India, wherever money is. I think they will try and go there.
The thing is now, you have to, the places have to bid for it now. Whereas they used to pick the location. It's much like the World Cup now. They've turned it into the World Cup where the cities have to bid for it. It's a bidding process. So that was part of not Tony Khan. What's the other fella? The mayor of London. That's one of the pledges. Was
even Nick Khan from WWE.
No.
Sadiq Slash.
Sadiq Khan, the one. That was part of his thing. If he got re-elected, he'd bring a WrestleMania over, but it all means money, doesn't it? I think Saudi Arabia are going to get a WrestleMania before we get a WrestleMania. They're getting a Royal Rumble.
If it's a bidding war, then there's no choices.
Yeah. That'll kill it if they get a WrestleMania. That'll kill. Like, can you imagine who's going over there for a WrestleMania? Especially 2 nights of that nonsense.
Yeah. No, it would be awful.
And I've stopped watching the boxing for multiple reasons, but the stuff over there, it's way over the top, and the people there don't appreciate it anyway. So you're talking to 2 different audiences there, but I wonder if you've converted anyone. I wonder if anyone's listened to this and thought, I want to give this a shot now.
Bit nice, isn't it? Be nice.
There you go. Informative and entertaining. Andy.
Thank you for taking the lead on that one, Stu. It's much appreciated. Right, okay. After the break, we'll be back and we'll be talking about Nick Cage in a film called Between Worlds. But before that, Ash, thanks so much for joining us tonight, mate. It's much appreciated your time. Hope you have a good one. Jafo, enjoy the rest of America whilst you're out there, mate.
Big love. Big love, mate. Thank you for having us on.
Anytime. Right, gents, we'll see you soon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us for the final part of the podcast. Before we get into Between Worlds, have you seen... I mean, it seems everywhere. I'm assuming you've seen these videos of Minecraft. You haven't seen the film yet, have you, Stu? You've seen these videos of cunts in cinemas, basically.
You want to just say, like, nothing surprises you anymore. And I don't get it. I haven't played Minecraft myself. I've watched now all 3 kids playing it over the years. And it's a silly building game. Yeah, I get there's in jokes and stuff, wherever. But I don't understand what that has to do with chucking stuff everywhere. And it's like what I said before for years and years. Like, I'm glad that we can't drink in view of the pitch of football in this country because people are thick.
Yeah.
And it's not just a UK thing, this. It seems more American only for now. But we know how this goes. People copycat. They do it for TikTok likes, and they do it for reactions, and they do it to be popular. And so what we did when we did our thing about making cinemas great again, a few halfway through last year, and the whole point was take their phones off them to start with, and now you
not encourage them to get them out. Yeah,
that thing with Megan coming back, and the exact opposite being true.
Yeah. Megan getting a re-release, and it's going to be a second screen experience. It feels like we've lost the war, Stu. It feels like the war is now won for the cretins.
Well, I was thinking this early when you put that out, and I thought, it's getting to that stage, and the fact that you can just wait and everything's on digital anyway within 2 weeks. I have been to the cinema. It is now, as we're talking, the 10th of April. I've been to the cinema once all year. And that was to see Captain America Brave New World, because obviously, of course it was. In that time, since then, The Monkey, Black Bag, and Nosferatu, we've all been in the cinema. I've watched them at home. because there was not available like a spot where you couldn't guarantee there'd be bellends ruining it for everyone. And it's they're the kind of films that you think, okay, especially Black Bag, which I actually thought was okay. It's no Glass Onion, but it doesn't need to be.
No, just grown up, intelligent, well written film.
Yeah, it's I don't know what is it. Is it like a? It's not really a whodunit, is it? It's more of a.
It's sort of espionage.
Yeah,
yeah,
eye thrillery. Yeah, look at things that don't get made very often anymore. But yeah, I sat there and really enjoyed it. And I thought, yeah, this doesn't need to be watched in super screen. I can watch it on projector and whatever, and it was absolutely fine. Rewind a couple of years ago, I would have gone and watched that on a Friday morning. And we were just talking off then that there's films that they release and it doesn't tally with the school run, so I just don't watch it then. And you can't guarantee it that if you go at night, you either go at a sensible time at night, like 9 o'clock, when you know there's no one going to be there pissing about, but you're going to be tired, or you run the risk of going round about 5:30ish, where there could be people, mainly teenagers, let's be honest, who are there after school or college pissing about, who've had a few during the day. Or you go 7 o'clock on opening night for things when people generally behave anyway. So that's the choice. None of these have been the ones that I just said had that choice available, so I didn't watch them there. And it's like, yeah, it's now, I've now wasted 36 quid. So 44 quid in the 3 months that I haven't been. I mean, I'll go next week anyway, but it's by the by. To go and see Minecraft. But that is the point of it, that it's even having a card now is not worth it because the experience is so bad, and there's only so many times you can tell them, and you can email them, you can tell them on Twitter, you can tell them on Instagram, you can DM them on Instagram, and it's we strive to be better, and nothing changes, and they're just killing themselves. And I have got to the point now where I just really don't care anymore. I would just wait a couple of weeks. I'll watch it at home. No dramas. Screen's good enough. When it's not even it's a 1080p projector that's 10 years old at this point. It's more than fine.
They're killing themselves. The one thing, so Cineworld have put out a tweet, so they're doing a showing. I don't know if it's this weekend or next weekend or when it is, but they're doing a showing where they pretty much want the people who do chicken jockey. Is this what it is? I don't really know or care, but whatever this meme is, that they want you to go to this screening and do all of that bollocks that they want to do it at that screening. And I kind of appreciate that a bit more. Like, I have no issue with a sing-along or a quote-along film, as long as that doesn't then bleed into all the other screens for the people who don't want it.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that's probably the best way to handle it, is saying, if you want to act like a twat, do it at twats only screening. That's cool with me. Excellent.
Yeah, but that is the problem, because it is so lively. And I don't blame them for not policing it, because why would you be paid 12 quid an hour or whatever it is? It's not worth it, especially with the way things are, adolescents, etc. But having this as the thing, they won't listen to this. They'll go to this, and then their friends will think about it. They'll talk to their friends about it and think, oh, we can go to the cinema and throw stuff around. And it won't just be this one. And to do this, they're going to have extra people. You're going to have someone in there watching the whole time.
Yeah.
Can they afford that? Who knows?
Probably not. No. And me and Ash have spoke about this before. It's the MCU's fault. This memification of going to the cinema. You saw it with Endgame. You saw it with No Way Home. They were probably the first two films, I think, in the social media age where people were hooping and hollering, and you want to get that video to then share on TikTok or Twitter or whatever to show all your followers that you're a twat just like these other people. And it's kind of then bled on. Like I remember when there was a meme of Mean Girls last year because they didn't realize it was a musical because for whatever reason they didn't know it was a musical going in. And someone's made some snarky ass comment on Twitter. And then when I went to see it, someone in the audience tried the same thing. Like, so yeah, I think it started with the MCU, all this nonsense. And it's just all this performative shit that is literally for internet likes. Because no one in the cinema likes it. No one thinks you're fucking cool. They think you're a cunt and hope you die. But it's cool on Twitter, isn't it, dickhead? Like, that's what really fucks me off, is that it is just such a performative act to spoil it for everybody else. Even though it was Wicked, fucking idiots taking pictures of like one of the scenes during Wicked because that was the done thing for Twitter.
I mean, we've seen it with it's like the whole, like I said about the football thing. It's like the box park for England games.
Oh God, yeah. I'm the biggest fan. I can throw the most beer.
Yeah, when you spent 10 quid a pint.
Shite. Yeah, you look like a twat. Awful.
Everyone wants to go there and everyone wants to throw the beer in the air. Yeah, it's
morons.
That's the thing. We're old men. Yeah, we are. But still, it's not even doing stupid things. I mean, like I said in the WhatsApp group the other day, there was one time where I deliberately got run over to see if I'd dent a car bonnet by landing on it. And I was about 16, 17 at the time. He didn't, by the way. And it was 15 miles an hour was a sweet spot. But we did stupid things then, but it didn't affect anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a random car, it was Chad. So it was fine. But it's just the same with everything else. Like, no one cares anymore. People just do what they want. And there's no policing them. And they'll be there on death now because it'll just go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, on to the film. We're at the point in Cage's filmography now, Stu, where I just assumed we were going to get some of the low quality. Like, I expected most films are going to fit between like a 5 and a 6. Like, the bad will be meh, and the good will be meh. There'll be nothing either end of it. Between Worlds from 2018, this might be the worst film we watched. This was. I'm trying to take away the fact that it's obviously we've only watched it in the last 7 days. I'm trying to take away that recency bias. This film was terrible.
It was, yeah, it was. This is the point, though. It's not. It is, but it's not the worst experience. So it gets a pass for that reason alone. Not for the good parts. I mean, the quote of this film, as last week's silliness, do you want a beer? Does the Tin Man have a she-male cock? What the fuck does that mean?
I couldn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. Oh, this is so weird.
It looks like it was made in like 1992, on a DV camera.
Mm. When I saw that it was 2018, I was stunned. I was like, surely this is one of Nick's late 80s films. It looks horrific. And he looks horrendous as well.
Yeah.
Like, I know his character's supposed to be like, it's his partner and their daughter died, so he's obviously living in the world after, and he's supposed to be a bit beaten up and everything. But I don't think I've ever seen him look so fat and haggard as he does in this. He looks really bad. I also thought it was really weird. I don't think we've ever seen Nick Cage smoke. I know there's the scene in Vampire's Kiss where he's got a fag in his mouth, but I don't remember him actually lighting up. But in this, like, he actually was smoking cigarettes. I think we've seen him with like stogies before. We've seen him with a cigar. I can't remember other than, as I say, Vampire's Kiss with a cigarette.
Leaving Las Vegas? in the
Can't remember.
in the motel, or was that just her?
Might be. It might
Yeah.
be. But it made me realise how weird it looks to see him do it.
Yeah.
Because he just doesn't feel like he doesn't really do it all that much. I mean, we're talking about probably 1 or 2% of his films.
No, we've never seen him in Budgie Smugglers either.
No, we haven't, thankfully, because that was not a good sight. Kind of horrific.
I mean, so were the sex scenes were horrific as well.
The first time when Franca Portento, it was nice to see her again. Haven't seen her since the Bourne films, I don't think. When she invites him in, and then they get that flash forward to a sex scene, and then the sex scene happens 2 minutes later. Like, why did you do that fucking dream sequence thing a second ago? Very strange and not sexy at all. Like, I thought the last sex scene in the last week's film was bad. In Rage, this was worse. This was worse.
I mean, it was a very like a My Name Is Earl kind of flash forward thing. I thought he was going to set like it goes back to like how it cut away to his face as well. Like he looked like that was his daydream. That was what he was thinking at that minute. And then it's the same shot anyway. So even a different one. It's exactly the same. Because of course it is. But the whole thing about him being just a bit of a bum and it's this lonely truck driver just driving around and like the whole thing where he bashes the guy's head off a toilet seat.
It was right at the start of the film. Nick Cage comes across Franca as she's been strangled in a men's toilet. Like I was 100%. I was certain that was going to be like some kind of sex thing, not she needs to almost die in order to see the future. Like what's that about? Fucking hell. The musical cues, that was one thing that got me quite early doors in this. They were all over the shop. So that there's soft jazz during the scene where they're racing to the hospital. Like this should be energetic, but no, soft jazz. We had some kind of like soft rock nonsense when the girl wakes up in the hospital. Then there's like some Marilyn Manson-esque shit during like a really fun and playful scene. Like whoever was the music director on this was terrible. They didn't do a good job at all, I didn't think. What good have you got on your list for this one, Stu?
This is the thing. It's not. I think if this was him going like full on method and he's let himself go to this extent just to get that body type, then fair play. Because that's some effort. I mean, he looks like me there.
Much worse than you, Stu. He looks terrible in this. He looks like he's in really poor shape, which is weird for Cage because he's usually quite svelte.
Yeah.
Even when he's looking like a hobo, like he doesn't ever really look awful, does he?
And he's got the same long hair that he had in Pig as well. Was Pig after this?
Yeah, it was. Pig was 2021, so a couple of years.
Yeah, so he put weight on for Pig anyway, didn't he? So, so we know he can do it. I mean, that's, and again, he's why he does these things at all when he doesn't need to. Is a baffling thing that's never going to be solved. I mean, I thought it was a good idea. There's not many things like this where you see, well, you have body swap comedies and that kind of thing from mainly in the 80s, but a story like this, I've got one for later, but other than that, I can't remember many that have involved like taking over someone else's body, let alone taking over the body of your new girlfriend's daughter.
Especially that's like a drama rather than action or horror.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of unique. It doesn't work. Like this film doesn't work at all. But it's like we've said before with other films, there is an idea there somewhere. I think that could have been interesting. I'll tell you where we are in Nick Cage's filmography here, Stu. So 2018. Prior to this, we've got Mandy. That was also 2018. We've got a couple of films we haven't seen there. He then went on to do Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Colour Out of Space is 2019. Kill Chain, Primal, Grand Isle, they're all 2019. Jiu-Jitsu was 2020. It's interesting looking at IMDb. Jiu-Jitsu's got a worse score than this. It's got a 2.9, whereas this has got a 3.9. I definitely had a better time with Jiu-Jitsu, and that is a terrible film.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it comes to something where you've got to Jiu-Jitsu, and that was the first film that we watched when we were doing this. It's that long ago.
Yeah, it's very true.
But I think with Jiu-Jitsu, it was again, it was in this thing. But then Colour Out of Space was amazing. Genuinely amazing. One of his best films for me, and it's in the top 5, in and out of the top 5 all the time whenever we do it.
And even Mandy, whilst we didn't love Mandy, that is a film that is like quite widely enjoyed.
Yeah, that's the same here as this. It's just bizarre, just utterly bizarre all the time. But I mean, the bad is everything else. Let's just get it. Let's just get it out there.
Yeah, it's terrible. It looks terrible. It's badly acted. The direction is pretty much non-existent throughout this. Like, there's no cinematography. It feels like they just filmed wherever they happened to be in the moment. Like, there's no effort put into any of this film. Like, I don't think there was any real effort put into this movie whatsoever. The script was piss poor. Oh yeah, it's really, it stinks. This film does. Just all round bad film.
Yeah, and it's there's like, you had the side stuff with them 2 stoners, friends of hers. Like, what were they there for?
Yeah.
And then that happens to him, and again, why is he going gun for?
So strange.
Like, none of it. It's more of a fever dream than Colour Out of Space was.
That's saying something, isn't it? That really is. The thing that gets me now is, like, we've got, like, most of the stuff we've got left to watch are from the late teens, of which this is clearly a part. So if this is this bad, what else have we got to fucking sit through? Like, how good is Arsenal gonna be? How good is Running with the Devil? We haven't seen Running with the Devil, I don't think. That's the one with Larry Fishburne. No, I don't think we've seen that one yet. 211, which we're going to watch next week. That's the film Looking Glass, 211, Teen Titans, then Between Worlds. Like, he's in a real rut throughout the 2010s, as we've discussed previously. And he does come out of this when we get to 2020. We get The Croods, and then Willy's Wonderland, Pig. Like, he does come out of it quite well, I think. And he does seem to have had like a bit of a second life in cinema. But I am worried about what we've got left to watch. What the fuck was that random ass ending as well? Where he just goes back into Cage's youth and where he shoots his dad.
Yeah. In 5 years of this is the first time I've ever rewound it on the first time I've watched anything. Because I thought I'd fell asleep.
I did the same. I was a couple of minutes into it. I'm like, who are these people? What's going on? And I was. If it was a better film, I would have watched it again to try and figure out why they did that. But I'm not watching this shit again. Fuck that.
I don't.
Terrible.
It's almost like they had it as an idea and didn't know where to put it. So rather than cutting it out, they put it at the end.
It just made no sense. None of it.
Like, is it saying he's killed before, so it doesn't matter? Is that the point of it?
Possibly.
But is that like trying to give it ideas of point station, and give it more credit than it deserves, because everything else about it, then it's not. It's worse than a student film.
Horrific. Have you got anything crazy? I've got a couple on the list.
I mean, the whole thing with where he's dancing with the water pipe. I mean, that was just like, why is he doing this? Oh, he's acting that whole arc with the daughter before he even knows it's his, well, it's the spirit, the evil spirit of his dead wife. Which again, yeah, that's what this is about. That was the thing. I went into this and I completely forgot what it was about.
Yeah, I sort of went in feeling like I remember there was some supernatural element, but I can't remember what it is. So let's just enjoy the ride.
Because I thought it was because I'd Beyond Two Worlds, the game with Ellen Page,
Yeah.
as was, and I thought, oh, that's got supernatural elements. Maybe it's kind of that kind of thing where you can go out of your body, and then it literally was. As you go, like astral projection and all that kind of stuff. I thought, oh, the nurse can see ghosts, can she? As she can see spirits. I thought, oh, this is going to be clever. Never went anywhere else. She reappeared once.
That's right.
But you never saw her face on. Like, why?
That's right. Yeah, that's such a strange film. When Cage was fucking the daughter wife, when it kept flitting between like a memory and the real world, but not quite that strange. And she says to him, "Read from the Book of Memories." Did you notice the name on the Book of Memories? It was Memories by Nicolas Cage.
Oh no!
Why? Like it would made absolutely no sense. If it was Memories by Joe Between Worlds, like fine, I get it. But no, it was Memories by Nicolas Cage. Like I feel like they were trying to like give us a message, but I don't know if that message was like in The Rock when the bad guy's wife is being buried and her tombstone says his wife. I don't know if it's just bad fucking script making, which it probably is. The other crazy thing, and this might be one of the craziest things ever, Stu. So it's got a 33% on IMDb, on Rotten Tomatoes from the critical reviews. So 1 in 3 of the 21 reviews didn't hate it. That's wherever. The audience score, 79. I'm just kind of stunned at that because this film honked. Obviously, as a Cage completionist, we kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for some of this shit. But surely that's not enough that almost 8 out of 10 people would say, yeah, I enjoyed this mess.
Well, that kind of brings us on to the next point, because I did thoroughly enjoy it because it was so awful, and it's not enjoying it for the right reasons, obviously. But I did get the same kind of laughs from this when I realised what this was. And I thought, well, they clearly don't care about it, do they? No one involved in this production cares about this nonsense.
Yeah.
Is this another one where we're we're giving it too much credit and it's actually a comedy? And then, like, after that was about 10 minutes in, and I thought this is just going to get even more stupid every time. And then something else happens, and then them two turn up again, and then the stuff where she's lying in lingerie on the bed, and like he's already like checking her out, and she's already wanking him off on the sofa before he knows that it's his wife. Yeah, and he's got his new girlfriend there in the kitchen. Like he's got no emotion there, and she's just stroking him. I was just giggling to myself the whole time. And yeah, it is enjoying this film for the wrong reasons. And yeah, it's an awful, terrible film, and you can't recommend it to anyone at all. But
oh god, no.
For some,
who's going to watch this shit? Like, yeah, no, definitely not.
It's not bad. It's not intentionally bad enough, like The Room. But and maybe I was in a silly mood, but that's what. And then you saw him walking outside with just his little pants on, and it's. I'm like, yeah, this is peak. It's never getting better than this. So I kind of understand if they're kind of rating it highly in an ironic way. But come on now. I mean, I gave it a 4 on IMDb. So I have kind of rated things properly this year more than like anything else. I don't know. Yeah. It's a 7, it's an 8 or whatever. And I gave that Black Bag. I thought that's probably about 6.5. Well, that's about right. So I gave it a 6. Oh yeah, it's fine. There's nothing special. But this was a 4 because it was terrible. But for some batshit crazy reason, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm kind of stunned at that. I didn't have much fun. I checked out pretty early. I think I was probably about 20 minutes in, and it was a bit obvious where things were going, and I'm just a bit bored now. And it carried on and fucking on at that point. It was only a 90-minute film, but it felt like days. So yeah, I didn't like it. This felt very, very bottom of the barrel Nick Cage stuff. Really low quality. I don't think he looked interested, if I'm honest.
No, that's...
Yeah, to spoil that question, I don't think it's a good Nick Cage performance at all.
No.
He was very, very, I'm here for the money and nothing else. It was sloppy, and not in the way that a man who is an alcoholic is supposed to be sloppy.
No, I mean, there was a lot of sloppy everywhere else, but it's... There was more action in this than Red Shoe Diaries.
It was quite surprising how much was going on, to be fair.
Yeah.
So, Stu, if you liked Between Worlds, you may also like what film you got.
It's not a film, it's a series, which something I'd never normally watch, and I think it's on Disney Plus now. But I genuinely love it, and there was a moment in there that something happens, and it was genuinely shocking at the time. And it's got that "How to Save a Life" song, and like whenever I hear it, played, which is quite a lot, I remember Ghost Whisperer every single time.
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah.
I never saw it, but I do remember it being on the back of my comic books for some bizarre reason.
It was brilliant.
Okay.
But because it was more like a rom-com kind of thing, but it was like a kind of amusing drama with anything else, and helping people crossing over, and not crossing over with John Edward, of course. It was a whole different beast. But yeah, Ghost Whisperer. I think more people need to watch Ghost Whisperer and give it a chance. And it ended as well. It ended properly, really well.
Excellent. I've gone for The Gift, the 2000, not the 2015 one, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Cate Blanchett, Katie Holmes, Keanu Reeves. Blanchett plays a clairvoyant who helps the accused man after the body of a missing woman turns up. I remember it getting like kind of short shrift from the critics way back when, but I really like Sam Raimi, and I thought this film was quite good fun. It was at a period of time where Keanu Reeves was getting a lot of shit for being a very wooden actor. Like, do you remember way back when people hated Keanu Reeves?
Yeah.
But he was decent in this film, and I really like Cate Blanchett, and you get to see Katie Holmes' massive norks. So, like, it's a winner on all fronts, I think, this one.
And Cate Blanchett in Black Bag as well.
Yeah. She's one of those actors, I'm like, I'll give anything you're in a chance because you're usually at least solid. Even if the rest of the film's not great, you're a great actor. Yeah. Like, even in that fucking terrible Indiana Jones film, she was grand. Right. So, as I said, we're watching... I don't know if it's 211, 211, 211. I don't know how it's going to be pronounced, but that's what we're going to be watching next week. We're also going to be continuing our wrestling theme because we need to talk about Dwayne. It's had a bad run, but it looks like it might be over. So we're going to have a chat about the future of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson next week, followed by a look at 211. 211 just to give you a heads up, Stu, about what it is going to be about. It's another 2018 film, so bear that in mind. While on a routine patrol, an aging cop and his partner and their ride-along get caught in a standoff with a band of former mercenaries robbing a bank. I mean, that sounds more interesting than what we've watched, so fingers crossed. I don't recognise anybody else in this film. Oh, Weston Cage is in it again. Nick's kid.
So I'm guessing 211's like the number of the cop car, or
I'm guessing so. It's going to be something related to bank robbery.
Yeah, the call sign of what?
Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? So yeah, that's going to be next week's film. Fingers crossed, it's just going to be better than what we've sat through this week.
What number have you done a numbering yet? How many we've done?
I haven't, but I think he's got 100 and let's have a quick look. Right, so Nicolas Cage. He has got 116 films as an actor. I was thinking, do we watch the stuff that he produced as well? I don't think that's a good idea to go down that route. But yeah, he's done 116, and we've got one. We've got one film, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of that's The Surfer, so that's not out yet. So say 4 still. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I think we've watched 101 Nick Cage films. Round that. I think it's 100, 101, 102, something like that. He's got 7 more coming out. Well, I say 7. He's got 6 more films currently slated and Spider Noir TV series. But I did have a look because he's listed as producer, and there are some things he's produced that he wasn't in, so we didn't have them on the list. He produced Can't Stand Losing You, Surviving the Police. So it's a documentary about Sting and the police. A film called 1,000 Words starring Eddie Murphy, which I've never heard of. He did a TV show called The Dresden Files.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I've never seen it. It's Paul Blackfoot, is it? Blackthorne, who was in Arrow. He was the cop in that.
Yeah, he used to be on Sky One.
From that. I don't remember it at all. It's 2007 that was out. So yeah, I think I'd worked out he got like maybe 5 or 6 things that he's produced that he didn't star in. So maybe we get those done as well. I don't know. We'll decide when we get to it. Because to be honest, that might just see us out through the rest of the year. And then we can start 2026 looking at the films of, I don't know. We'll decide when we get there.
Eric Roberts.
God. That cunt's got like about fucking 1,000 credits on IMDb. Definitely not watching them. But we've got time to decide. Or you get in contact with us, and who do you want us to watch next after this monstrosity is over?
It's really 5 years of our lives.
God. Unbelievable. Right, okay. Make sure you got us on your podcasters. If you can give us a 5-star review, we would love you forever. If you want to get in contact with us, it's cagefightingpod@gmail.com or on the socials @cagefightingpod. And for this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah, if your wife dies in a fire, just let her be. Goodbye.
We said, you said yesterday, 2.5 hours this podcast. The first part of this podcast was 150. We are now on 37 nearly. Once I've added all the other bits in, this is going to be about a 2.5 hour podcast. So you're on the money, Stu. Well done.
As expected.
Right. It's goodbye from me too. And remember, be excellent to each other.